So thank you so much for joining us today on our webinar to discuss engaging with Master's Business Analytics students here at the Wisconsin School of Business. My name is Hallie Jones. I'm the Corporate Outreach Manager here at the School of Business, working with our MSBA students on the Consulting Capstone. I'm going to go over our agenda, and then I'll introduce our other speakers today. So today, we're going to give you an overview of the MSBA program, which stands for Masters of Science in Business Analytics. We're going to talk about where the Consulting Capstone fits into our program. We're going to go over a timeline. We're going to give examples of industries and deliverables. We're going to give specific project examples in the Consulting Capstone, client testimonials, and then finally, we'll end with the top 10 reasons to engage with Wisconsin School of Business and provide next steps for you to continue. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jay to introduce himself.
Thanks, Hallie. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I'm Jay Page. I am Director of Experiential Learning for our Masters in Business Analytics program, but I'm also lead instructor for our Capstone, our project-based learning experience for our students. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Cody, I'd like for Cody to introduce himself.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. Everybody, so I'm the director of our analytics programs, both the online and in-person programs. So I teach several of the classes in the program, but also help with things like the capstone, with admissions, recruiting, that sort of thing. So, and Hallie, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and just start diving into the program here a little bit. I wanted to, at the start, just kind of give you some highlights about our program to give you some sense before we dive deeper into the capstone. But as a few highlights, so this year, we have new students every fall. We've got 92 students, and we've had pretty good placement over the last few years. We think that's because of the program we built over time and the marketability of our students. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But a couple other things that you see on the right here just gives you kind of a sense of the curriculum that we have across our program, pretty wide ranging. Things that you'd see that are pretty standard, obviously, like programming, data visualization, machine learning, SQL and data warehousing, stats. But you also get some things that are unique to our program that you don't see in a lot of other analytics programs across the country. As one example, we have a focus on cloud technology, which so we were getting feedback from a lot of our employer partners over the last few years that you're churning out great students, they've got excellent skills, but we want them to be able to do all of these analytics things in the cloud. And so we have a focus on the cloud. Now, a lot of what our students are able to do, they can do them in a cloud environment too. So we find that as kind of a unique aspect of our program. We also have other things that we specialize in, sort of helping students run data-driven experiments, building out data automation and data pipelines, among other things. And then also in the bottom left corner, it gives you kind of a sense of some of the tools that we use across our program as we teach throughout the curriculum. So we obviously have a focus on Python. Our students get a lot of exposure to that. But we also work with Tableau and Power BI, as well as AWS is kind of like our primary cloud platform that we're using. We're also using Snowflake for cloud data warehousing. And then UiPath and Celonis are our tools that we use for process automation and process mining. So a lot of probably popular tools. But I will say, like, there are, when we talk more about the capstone, there are employer partners that use tools other than this, and that's totally fine. We help students kind of ramp up to use some of those other tools, and there's a lot of similarities between them. So anyway, those give you some highlights. I also wanted to show on the next slide a bit about more about our student profile. So a lot of them do come to us with business backgrounds. We also see students in other areas, so economics, engineering, computer science, but also kind of there's this big other category. One of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on is we get students from a wide range of backgrounds, not only education, but experience. And so we have students that are coming from agriculture, art, neuroscience, just a mix of things. And it sort of enriches our classroom. And for the most part, regardless of their background, they have sort of this goal of taking their previous education experience, whether it's marketing or neuroscience, and adding analytics on top of that to be this kind of cool new data-driven individual to add more value to whatever domain or area they're coming from. So, and then on the next slide, it talks a little bit about the curriculum or the timeline of the curriculum for our program. The students actually start in the summer in a boot camp. It's an online course that they take because a lot of them are doing internships at that time. We're still working. And so it's a class in stats and programming, which sort of gets everyone up to the same level in those areas. And then the fall semester is where they get their analytics core, their foundation classes. They all take the same classes. So it's everything from machine learning and AI to data visualization, cloud technology, project management, you name it. It gives them these really solid technical foundations. And then the spring semester is where they sort of get to branch out a little bit. They get to take some electives that align with their career goals, whether that's marketing analytics or people analytics. And then they also get to participate in the consulting capstone, which we're kind of here to talk about. And all of those things in the spring semester, the capstone in particular, provide them an opportunity to sort of apply all the skills that they're learning and to see where the rubber meets the road. Now, I think one important note here to make is that we want our students to develop these really strong technical skills, but we have a bunch of other things that we're trying to build, and we call these our 5 pillars of our analytics program. And so each of these we think are important to help our students be ready for the marketplace. And you could say ready for the capstone projects that we're going to talk about. So one of those is skill building. That's a part of it. We want them to have really strong technical skills and the opportunity to apply them. We also want them to become great leaders and team members. We want them to have a sense of community and the ability to network. We also want them to be resilient and adaptable because analytics changes all the time, and we want them to be able to adapt to that situation. And then also to develop strong communication skills. And what we love about the capstone, one of the things that we love, is it helps these students develop a lot of these things in that process. With some of their classes, it's maybe, or some of our activities, it's just maybe 1 or 2 of these things. The capstone, in many ways, helps them achieve several of these pillars, which again help them be ready more ready for the marketplace. Okay. With that being said, let me hand it over back to Hallie and just talk a little bit about the timeline for the capstone in particular.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. So that was a lot of great background about our business analytics program here at Wisconsin School of Business. Now I'm going to dive deeper into what it means to be a sponsor for our consulting capstone. So this is a timeline that we use to recruit companies to be sponsors for our capstone projects. And really, we recruit companies year long, even though this just really shows the school academic year from September to May. We really start, in January recruiting companies for the following year. So our capstone occurs in the spring semester, but we have all of our proposals in about by this time every year. We're still taking in a few proposals right now. There are some agreements that we have in place, the scoping document or the request for proposal being one of those documents that we have kind of a back and forth between the sponsor and us, just making sure that the project is scoped properly for the 12-week engagement. But really, it culminates early December, where we are able to show students not the companies participating, but the projects that we have lined up for them. So they get to read a little bit about what the project is, the tools they might be using, the deliverables they're asked to do, and then they rank their preference of those projects. So in December, we will look at their backgrounds, their undergrad degrees, any experience they might have, their preferences, and we match the right students to the right project, which is really makes for a great experience for all when it comes to spring. The project reveal is probably the most exciting time where they actually get to see what companies they're going to work with. And we do that sort of in a really special way by requesting swag from companies, and then they get to open their boxes and learn what company and what project they get assigned to. So that's an exciting day for them in late January. And then sponsor orientation, that's just a virtual thing that we do with our sponsors just to reiterate some of kind of the rules of engagement when the projects start, how they can most effectively work with their team of students. And then the kickoff to the project, when you actually meet with the students and kick off the project, that's typically in February. This year it coincides with our industry fair, which is on February 14th. And we'll go over these dates later. These are just a general timeline that is in effect in any given year. But we'll go over the specific dates for this year later on a slide. And then final presentations, of course, coincide with the end of the semester, and then sponsors give feedback to the faculty. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jay to talk about more about the boot camp and the consulting capstone itself and what goes on in those.
Thanks, Hallie. Super excited to talk about the Consulting Skills Boot Camp. Cody mentioned our 5 pillars. Our cloud technology is a differentiator in our program. And our consulting skills boot camp is another one of those big differentiators that we have here in our MSBA program. Our curriculum for our boot camp was designed by a consultant who spent many years in industry, and she brought into our curriculum where students have an opportunity to learn some of the McKinsey skills of consulting, where they learn the SCQA approach and the pyramid approach to consulting. And then they bring that into the capstone when they start in February. They also learn during the consulting skills boot camp how to present like a consultant, answer first, and then support that answer with the rest of the deck. We also teach them talking headlines, storytelling, and some other key elements during that 3-week boot camp to better launch them into our consulting capstone. Then our consulting capstone takes over, actually, as Hallie mentioned, the week of Valentine's Day this year. And that's where the students work in a very 12-week intensive program where they're solving a real-world business question, working with real data, and then either providing insights or some type of deliverable at the end of the project. Our capstone also has some unique elements as well. It's faculty supported. We spend as faculty 3 hours a week in the classroom with our student teams, ensuring that they understand the business question, they understand the context of business, helping them prepare their PowerPoint presentations and all those things. And then we also have a PhD student typically in the room with them as well that is trained on all the technical tools. They open up office hours for the students to support them too. We pride ourselves on small teams. As Hallie mentioned, we actually build our student teams based on preference, based on experience, based on undergrad degree. We also encourage our sponsors to be actively involved in our projects, and they're actually led by students, but they're guided by the sponsors. Our students will put together a work plan. They'll sign a team charter. They'll work with our sponsor on setting up weekly meetings. And during that 12-week window, they're going to invest around 500 total consulting hours working with you to help you solve that real-world business question. Next slide. So I wanted to just briefly cover some industries that we work with and then some examples of different projects we've done in the past. We pride ourselves on the fact that we provide students an opportunity to work on projects in a variety of industries, from accounting to restaurant to motorsports. All the industries are not on here, but this just gives you a broad brush overview. And that's really exciting for us. As you saw on the slide that Cody covered, our students come from a variety of backgrounds, and we try to find industries that match those backgrounds. And as you can see, we do anything from insights to data mining to data scraping to predictive modeling and all kinds of other great things that we do for our sponsors. And here's just a broad summary of some of the sponsors that we worked with in the past, from a small startup all the way to Fortune 500 companies such as Deloitte and Procter & Gamble. Again, with the emphasis on variety, we really enjoy having our students work with a wide variety of companies. And as you can see on this slide, we really take a deep dive into those real-world business challenges for our sponsors. Our first project on the left, as an example, we work with a major candy company that was experiencing some severe stockouts, realizing that their internal and external data were not really communicating well together. And our student team created a model to help them more accurately predict their in-stock conditions and actually handed that model over to their client when the project was over. Our next project was a market basket analysis where we work with a small health food chain in Florida to help them better understand product ties and then how they can market those product ties to their consumer. Now I want to talk just a little bit about some feedback that we've got from our sponsors. Again, we're very prideful when we hear great things from our sponsors. It makes us excited not only that our student teams did well, but we had prepared our students to deliver what our sponsor wanted in a very professional way. So as you can see from Clarios, a major manufacturer of lead batteries in the world, talked about how engaged that their student team were. They were always on time and prompt for meetings, and they put a ton of energy and effort on their project. Another sponsor, company Fair Indigo, small clothing retailer here in Madison, exceeded expectations. Again, we love to hear that from our sponsors. Impressed with their level of soft skills. We put a lot of energy in those 5 pillars. We put a lot of energy in our students to help them develop themselves personally and professionally. Another thing we liked about Rob's feedback As we know, a lot of our sponsors may not be in the area of business analytics. They may be executives. They may be those in other areas of the company. And our students were able to tell a story to Rob that was easy for him to understand. And the tool that we gave him, the Tableau dashboard, to see real-time data on customer returns, he uses weekly, and he's very comfortable to use that since the students really work with him to really understand what that tool looked like. I'm going to turn it back over to Hallie. She's going to talk a little bit about why there's reasons to engage with us.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. So the top 10 reasons to engage with Wisconsin School of Business. This is the slide you've all been waiting for, I'm sure. Now, these reasons are in no particular order, but these are things that we've heard from our clients and sponsors in the past. Of course, they get help solving a business question when they participate in the consulting capstone. Second, the ability to share industry perspectives with students. So, of course, they can learn from faculty and the content in the classroom, but when they get to actually hear about how you're using analytics in the industry, that's all the more impactful to them. They get to, or rather, you get to learn about emerging tools and technologies. So you get to see what they're learning in the classroom and see maybe some new things that you could utilize in your workplace. Number 4, you get to scope top analytics talent and other talent. Cody showed the slide showing all the backgrounds of our students. So they have talents way beyond just their analytics talent. It's a great PR opportunity for your organization. So you're welcome to write an article on your partnership with UW and the Capstone and working with the analytics students. A lot of companies do this to show their customers and their followers that they are giving back to the next generation of analytics students. Often we hear that mentoring students renews energy on your team. So when you're working with students that have a lot of, energy themselves and they're very competitive, happy-go-lucky spirit tends to rub off on everybody working with them. So that's a benefit of working with these young students. You get the opportunity to connect with other programs and departments at WSB. So if you've got, maybe a branding project and maybe we're not the best fit for that, or you want to hire other students beyond analytics students, we can connect you with other departments, employer relations, to post internships, jobs, you name it. It's a great networking opportunity for you as an analytics professional. So you get to see other companies that are also sponsoring projects, but then we also have what we've developed as an analytics affiliates group, where if you become a member of that, you get even more one-on-one connection with other analytics professionals to learn from each other. Number 9, you get to improve your brand awareness across WSB. So by participating in a project, we'll ask for your approval and to use your logo and sort of talk very broadly about a project that you're doing with us. If you're okay with that, we'll post articles on our LinkedIn. We've had sponsor engagements be featured on cross-campus communication articles that have been widely distributed across all the alumni of Wisconsin, not just the School of Business. And again, you would be able to sign off on approval of that, but that's really exciting too. And lastly, and certainly not least, higher education needs industry partners. So we really, need partners like you to do projects with these. Like these with us, without industry partners and real world problems, students kind of graduate and, they've got the experience in the classroom, but they don't have any of that real world experience that companies want them to have when interviewing for jobs and coming into their organization. So it's really important that there's people like you out there that are willing to work with us and our students on these. So I'm just going to summarize real quickly kind of some deadlines and dates for this coming cycle. We still have a few projects available to sponsor. So right now, this week, we're sort of collecting those final project proposals, but we can go into the next couple of weeks as well. So that's not a hard and fast deadline. The agreements that we talked about, like the scoping documents, if you want to be an affiliates member, we try to get those out of the way in November. And then, like we mentioned, the December 4th project preview is the day that the students get to learn on a high level about the projects and get to choose what they're interested in. December 20th, we have company promotional items due. So that's those swag boxes that I told you will be revealed to students in January. We collect all those materials and get those boxes packed before that January date. And then on January 15th, we actually send out invoicing before this, but most companies prefer to pay by the end of the year their project fee. Now, you might be asking, what is the project fee? This is an amount that really depends on the size of your organization, whether you're for profit or not for profit, and a couple of other factors. And those are conversations that we feel are best to be had one-on-one. So certainly reach out to us and we can have that conversation with you as well. Here are the blue dates that you might want to jot down if you're hoping to sponsor a project for this coming spring. The blue ones are the ones where the sponsors are actually involved. The ones that are not blue are just key dates for the capstone in general. And we can send out these dates to you after the presentation is over as well. Like I mentioned, the session is being recorded. So last thing is some next steps. So you might be thinking, how do we proceed if we're interested? Well, after you discuss your project ideas internally in your organization, or maybe you've already jotted some down during this session, just share them with us. We love to have a conversation. A lot of companies come to us with 2 or 3 project ideas and say, oh, we don't know which one's best. We're happy to have that conversation with you. Just reach out to Jay or myself. We'll share our email and contact information here on the next slide. The next thing you need to think about is to determine how students would access the data for the project. Next, you need to form your internal project team. So sometimes it's one person designated for the students to reach out to every week. Sometimes it's 2, just so, if somebody's super busy one week or traveling, that other person can kind of step in. Determine if you have a budget or what your budget might be to sponsor a project. And keep in mind, what we use the money for that we collect for these projects is everything in our program, from immersion trips to hosting case competitions, hosting panel discussions here on campus, lunch and learns. We do a lot for our students, and that can only be made possible by our sponsorships from our companies. So we're very grateful for those. And then finally, complete the scoping form. That's sort of like the easy part. It's a pretty basic 1-page form that we can walk you through. So I'm going to share these contact emails on the last slide. It's Cody, myself, Jay, and then of course Natalie, who isn't joining us today, but she's on the team as well. If you end up hosting a project and sponsoring a project, you will interact with each one of us, which is so exciting for you.